to say that Marcus Fiesel would be 5 years old, except he won't be.
Throughout history, nations have reached a peak and then suddenly and many times violently are brought to their knees. What are the reasons? Is this merely the change of times, or is God's hand at work in bringing down kings and governments?
He was murdered by his foster parents, David and Liz Carroll. Picked him up and put him in a closet for 3 days.
Rise in earthquakes, hurricanes, widespread corruption, disease, poverty, violence, and the unsettling talk of one world government. These are the subjects that play a huge role in the future of our world.
Doomsday? Well, it may be a doomsday, but man's gonna make it. It's just about like people wondering where hell is. Hell's right here on earth, all around us. All kinds of stuff, you know.
I think we're going to continue to have things like earthquakes and hurricanes and war.
I think we face some of the same problems that we've always faced as a species, you know.
I think the economy of the United States is in trouble right now and makes it hard on people, hard for people to get jobs and hard for people to keep their jobs.
I just think it's going to be chaos for a while with the whole planet's alignment.
You know, being mankind, we all have desires. We all have things we want, but then we have things we need. And that's basically where the problems arise, is what we want versus what we need, right?
It's like, that's when, just like the end of the days is going to start, the whole Antichrist and the world uniting.
I really can't say. I wish I could, but I don't know too much about it.
I mean, there's a lot of prophecies, but really when it boils down to it, you got to look at what is the most accurate version of prophecy that I can find.
What are you getting a tattoo of?
Vincent Price portrait.
Vincent Price. Who's Vincent Price?
He's an old school horror actor, like back in the 70s, 60s.
Cool.
Kind of my movies a couple months ago, about January of 2010, and last count with all my movies, all my wrestling DVDs and all that, it comes up to about 390 movies, DVDs. It's pretty amazing. I'm a Christian, and I believe that Christ is going to come back one day, or something like that. Where it's going to be like good versus evil, Antichrist coming.
What do you think we could do to change things?
Nothing. That's just how it's going to roll. The whole alignment thing is just going to just shake some stuff up. And
I don't necessarily think we can change the events that are going to happen. I think that that they're not necessarily predetermined, but that they're going to happen whether we try to stop it or not.
There's too many people, not enough resources. I think if people want to maintain and survive, then they should be seeking ways off of this rock and out into space. web,
No,
Bob?
I sure haven't. Tell me about it.
Back in the late 90s, a group of computer programmers got together and decided that they would write a program that was designed to predict stock transactions. What it did is it used these little spiders that crawl around the internet and would basically gather up information from forums and different chat groups and would piece together a summary of what it thought the stocks were going to do. And they said it had like an 85% track record the first couple of years, so it's pretty good. But I guess one of the guys decided that, hey, you know, if we change this code around, we can make it predict the future and events rather than just the stocks. So they did that, and in I think it was 2001, it created a group of 6 reports, and one of the first things it said was within 6 months there would be a event that would change the way we live our lives around the world, and 6 months after that was 9/11. So, but it talks about the end of the world. It talks about aliens returning. It talks about polar shifts. It talks about an unknown energy source that's supposed to come from space that will create gravitational waves, some strong enough to knock planes out of the sky and even drop people to their knees, like physically. There'll probably be volcanic events. And it talks about, and it says most of this is going to happen within the years 2010 and 2011.
I blame a lot of it on the technology and the turning of times. You know, it's made, you know, things change. Things were much simpler, you know, back in 20 years ago or so, you know, and the advancement of weapons and things of that nature, you know, and then you got our own government shipping out our own jobs to other countries and stuff. We're basically going to turn ourselves into a third world country eventually if we don't stop this. I think we should go back to maybe more primitive times, you know, personally, but yeah, with the way things are going, it's going to be survival of the fittest. I don't know if the whole 2012 thing is true, if that's really going to go down, but if that doesn't go down, then who knows where this world's going, you know? It's in a steady decline, though. I think a rebellious rise, you know, would be about your best options for our own country. You know, if you could get citizens of our own country to rise up, you know, and it has happened before. I mean, we did it with England, you know.
Right.
We rose away from that tyranny and everything. So.
I can remember like being a kid in Montgomery, Alabama, and there was like this big scare about like some earthquake that was gonna like split the country in half, and some cat predicted it using all these like numeric anomalies and like all this bizarreness algorithms or whatever, and like essentially these massive earthquakes were gonna hit the country like at the same time. I don't even remember what year it was, but and then there was something similar as I got older. Then there was Y2K. I put about as much stock in like those kind of doomsday scenarios as I do a virgin conceiving a child, frankly.
What about like with America? What do you think will happen if things don't change for the way things are going right now?
I think it's interesting. I think that you're kind of like, perhaps not financially per se. I think that you're seeing other countries kind of rise up in the ranks financially. I don't know how much we're like falling on the world stage of things necessarily, economically speaking. But there are certainly like people that are doing better, certainly countries that are doing better. I think that, you know, inevitably, if they continue to rise, you know, you're going to have kind of new superpowers surface, and the old superpowers have to go somewhere. It's human nature, obviously. You know, that's what competition's all about.
Doomsday? It may be a doomsday, but man's gonna make it.
Yeah.
And it's just about like people wonder where hell is. Hell's right here on earth all around us. All kinds of stuff, you know. So I don't know. Doomsday is earth gonna be destroyed. It's a possibility. But that man could destroy it with the atomic bomb, you know, all that nuclear stuff, but where it will happen or not, I don't know.
I think we're living in the end times. I don't know for sure. Nobody knows for sure when Christ is going to come back, but it wouldn't surprise me if he comes back before then.
I believe in God, though I probably don't practice my religion a whole lot.
Well, I think there's some things in Daniel and Revelation, and I think that people like Hitler and some of the changes that have gone on with some of the main countries, I think Bible prophecy is being fulfilled. And it's hard to say exactly where we are with that, but from wars and weather and just catastrophe, if you will, I just think I think we're living in the end times.
If they don't change, if you pardon the expression, they're going to go to.
Go downhill. Go to heck, okay?
Wonder if they're actually Bible prophecies, but come pretty close to it.
I think there's a lot of things when you look around right now that make people scared and make people wonder what's going on in the world. But I would just like to say, I believe that God is in control, that God is a good God and a loving God, and he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die for all our sins, and that we can have hope when we put our trust in him and we put our trust in Jesus Christ. And I think if anyone's curious and wants to know more, there's a lot of good people that they can talk to and that they can find hope through Jesus Christ.
Racism. I'd say there's a battle of geographical locations. Religion is a huge issue. People have opinions. There's a lot of problems in the world right now. But there always have been, and some people fail to see that. They're like, oh, well, it used to be easier. Well, back in the medieval times, people used to get their heads chopped off. Right. You know, go to the guillotine. So what problems are you looking to solve? That's my question. My religion is non-existent. I'd say my religion is information. You know, I bow down to anything that is correct. I bow down to earth, obviously, because I can't stop the wind or the fire or the earthquakes. And I have to eat, you know. So my religion is, what I believe in is just the truth. And that can be very construed at times, you know. I come from a strong Christian background, you know, so I have a lot of those morals. I think that Christianity probably has one of the best records as far as helping people and trying to do good because of what they get out of it.
I personally think that churches need to get more involved in what's going on in the community. Take Henderson, for instance. It's basically a place of distribution and manufacturing of methamphetamines.
But I'm not saying that there's not something greater than me. The sun is greater than me. There are lots of entities that are greater than me. If entity is the right word, I need to look the definition up before I use that word anymore. But I don't see any cognitive being out there controlling things. If it's invisible, then it may be there, you know. But if it's invisible, then how can it have a cognitive brain powering things or be able to do things? There's a lot of questions there, and I'm not trying to make any declaration or take people away from it. I just think that with the world's problems, we can have a lot of confusion trying to say whose religion is right and what God is.
I believe in energy systems, energy meridians, and the weakening magnetic system comes from the belief system that we all have, the collective unconsciousness, that the end times are coming, and some of the belief systems stem from biblical and some of them stem from the Mayan calendar. So as the scientists have reported that the electromagnetic fields that protect us from the solar flares, which currently cause the aurora borealis, also known as the northern lights, are going to weaken. The scientists in general predicted earthquakes in Haiti. Now, scientists predict a lot of things, and some of them come true and some of them don't. So as a collective, we have to strive to be better people, and we can prevent the end of the world. This is Buster. He's famous.
In society and on the media, there's a lot of good stuff that you don't see. Myself, I'd like to see a good news channel. I have ideas of having a channel that shows only the good stuff and the positive stuff, barely talking about the bad, rather than the reverse or flip side. But 10 years from now, I see myself just in a better version, and I see the world as connecting more. Unfortunately, a lot of Christians that I know say that as the world comes to one government, that's what the Bible prophesied, and that the person who's going to change it all is the Antichrist, which pretty much says anybody doing anything good that doesn't have to do with Jesus is the Antichrist, or just prophesied in the Bible, which is a big problem to me.
You know how the barcode, how they coded it down to mean 666?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now the new FRID chips have the barcode implanted inside of them. So that, you know, it goes in. Plus, have you ever seen the PayPass things with the credit card machines where you just swipe the thing? Well, those got RFID chips. So if you got them in your hand, you know, in the Bible it talks about that how nobody will be able to buy, sell, or trade without the mark. Well, that same technology is in the chips that are implanted, where you can actually buy. It links straight to your bank account. And the way they're going to enforce it on people is they're going to say that no child will ever be kidnapped again. You don't have to worry about that because we'll be able to find them with the chip implant. You'll be able to buy, you know, without having to worry about people frauding you. Drug dealers won't be able to buy, sell, or trade without it, so there won't be any drug money coming in and out. So everybody, they'll know exactly what people's finances are, so you don't have to worry about corruption and crime or anything like that.
The world tends to tell people to mind their own business and to not get involved in each other's lives, to just basically stay withdrawn from everything. And Christ says, get out there, you know, spread the word, spread love, take care of people.
The one world government, I think, is a good idea, and that's a problem. We need to focus on how to live on other planets or take life to other solar systems. And if not, then maybe we should just all try to pray and hope for something. But I'd rather just work towards solutions and try to fix problems and not worry about if I'm going to a happy land or if my spirit's going to float out of my body through the sky to this wonderful place when I die.
You'll fall for anything, and I fell for everything around me, the streets, the bottle, the drugs. July 19th at 2 a.m. I found myself walking through a cemetery, saying, you know what, I should be here. I should be here for all the trouble that I went through. To Red Victory Outreach Church. And I said, God, if you're for
The great falling away from the church is happening right now. I mean, you see that going on everywhere, you know, with atheism and agnostic on the rise. You know, people don't know what they believe anymore. I see different stuff going on as far as prophecy and everything, man. You know, Israel become a nation and everything. The New World Order coming in, you know, I mean, it's like, it's all over the news, you know, them building it up, you know, trying to force, they're running our dollar to the ground right now. And George Bush signed into work, you know, about becoming a North America Union and the Merrill, everything coming into play. I'm not exactly for sure when it's going to come in, but I'd say within the next year and a half, couple years, the dollar is going to be almost worthless, and they're just going to have to drop it, and we're going to go to the Amero. Once again, that's just another step towards the New World Order that the Bible talks about. And it's not so much that the One World Order is a bad idea. You know, I hear people talk about one world government being a good idea and all that stuff, but it's not the thing that that's a bad idea. What makes it bad is if you give that much power to one person, it corrupts. Power corrupts, and that absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you give absolute power to a human, we're destined for a Hitler or something again. You know, it's like even if the first world ruler is a good guy, there's going to eventually be another Hitler in power there, because it's told throughout history and it repeats. You know, there's just no getting around it. Oh, well, of course, Israel becoming a nation, you know, it's like the Bible talks about that. It's going to be like almost the mark of the beginning of the end. And to believe before then was, you know, end times, was kind of to be ignorant of the Bible. But, you know, people have been predicting the end since the beginning. You know, ever since Jesus left, people were predicting the end. Well, before Jesus, cultures were trying to predict the end of the world. You know, the Mayans predicted, and all Sumerians, all these people predicted the end of the world. And it's just kind of built into our human nature to try to, you know, understand stuff that we can't understand. So, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff, like the technology explosion.
In Daniel, it talks about there's a knowledge explosion that's going to happen. And it says, "Seal the book until the time where men shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." Now, if you think about it from the time of Adam all the way to the time of Ford, people rode on horses. Okay, people still had to use the mail service to get mail around, if they even had that back then. They were still using lights at night for electricity. They didn't have electricity. Running water was a thing. Well, now you look at it, within the last 100 years, we got kids being able to text each other over the phone. You can see each other through the internet. You got people landing on the moon. We have major technology bursts that nobody can deny that there's been a knowledge explosion within the last 100 years, because nowhere throughout history was ever technology that strong. On top of that, we got Israel becoming a nation in 1948. That's a prophecy that is fulfilled, that's very strong, because no country in the history of humankind in history has ever ceased to become a nation and then gotten their borders back and became a nation once again. It's never happened before. So that prophecy right there was enough to make a lot of people not believe, because it was like, how could that ever happen? Well, it happened in 1948. On top of that, we got in Revelations, it talks about a new world order, and actually throughout the Bible it talks about the new world order numerous times. There's a lot of Christians that don't want to listen about the new world order. They think it's just a conspiracy theory. Well, the Bible talks about it. So if the Bible talks about it, it's worth talking about. Okay, and in fact, it tells you to be study to show themselves approved. And a lot of Christians aren't studying; they're not showing themselves approved. The only thing they're studying is the Wheel of Fortune or some stupid show on TV, not thinking about God. But anyway, there's prophecies about the New World Order, and of course that's coming into way right now. You got the Copenhagen Treaty; they're trying to get signed. We've got the United Nations, where almost every nation is a part of that. Almost every nation is going against Israel, which the Bible talks about that right there. It says that every nation will come up against Israel, and their bodies, their skin will melt off their flesh. And what that means is, to me, like, I could think of that happening nowadays, like the skin melting off their flesh. It describes nuclear warfare. But every country right now, as you can see, is going against Israel. It's, United Nations, they had the guy openly told them that he wanted to destroy Israel right in a United Nations meeting, and only a few people walked out. You know, a lot of people just sat there and listened to it. This shows how things are going. There's been a lot of people that look at the Islam nation as a nation of tolerance, when in fact, if you read the Quran, it's not tolerance. It's completely opposite of tolerance. It tells you to lie in wait, say it's okay to lie, make false peace treaties. These are the things that the people are studying, but what they want to produce for you is the peaceful writings of it, which is before Muhammad ever became a warlord. Before then, people thought of him as like a Jesus prophet. He taught some of the teachings of Jesus, and then through his life he became a warlord. So there's a lot of that going on. They're fighting everywhere, all around their borders. They're fighting everybody, and that's prophesied to happen. Talks about Russia from the north, Gog and Magog coming down and fighting against Israel. It's in the making right now.
You know, the Bible talks about being able to stand on one coast and talk to somebody else somewhere else, like across the world or whatever. Or when Jesus comes back, the whole world's going to be able to see him. It's like 100 years ago, that would have took an act of God for that to even be possible. But it can happen nowadays with just what we're using right here. I mean, we could take this, throw it all over the internet, broadcast it on TV, and all of a sudden, you know, we get enough viewers. If I'm important enough, the whole world sees me. in one instant. You know, like if it goes viral like that, you know, just imagine if Jesus came back, what kind of event that would be. Everybody would watch it. Tonight at News on 9, Jesus return, you know, everybody's watching, you know. So it's like that stuff couldn't have happened 50, 100 years ago unless like God did some kind of real big miracle. And now it can just happen for nothing. I encourage you to look them up. It's like go through the Bible, see what Jesus said was going to happen, and then go later into the apostles, and it happened. You know, and you can't say that because it's in that book that it didn't all go together, because it's not just one book. It's a whole bunch of books compiled together, and they weren't written at the same time. If you do any kind of historical research, you can find that out, which is another thing that gives the Bible legitimacy, is that it's a whole bunch of different authors over a whole long period of time. And to think that a library that massive could have the same general theme of Jesus over that many years and still fit together like it does and not be of some divine inspiration is foolish. I mean, that's just foolish.
Our nation's a nation of false idols. We got money, one of the top false idols that people, anything that we put before God is a false idol. And I'd say a high percentage of the United States puts many things before God, and we see what happens when that happens. So I think it'll get worse.